Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Samaan. It's great being back with you. We're in this new series, which is on addictions. A lot of that going around, isn't there? Unmasking addiction, or addiction unmasked. The spiritual origins is what we're talking about today. Last time we spoke about the introduction of this subject, and today the spiritual origins of the addictive process. The Addiction Unmasked series is to identify 5 essential areas involving spirit, soul, and body. Remember, we're Christian counselors, so we're dealing with not only mental part, we're dealing with a spirit, the Trinity part of us, the triune part of us, those 3 parts of spirit, soul, and body, because we believe when you encompass all 3, you have a better chance of, well, let's say healing, a better chance of restoration, reconciliation, and whatever else that may come out of that. So these 5 areas we are going to be discussing, and today we're on spiritual origins of the addictive process. Next time we'll talk about the behavioral origins of the addictive process, and then the discerning the addictive personality, drugs in the brain, and recovery, unmasking the enemy, because that's what addiction is. Any addiction is an enemy. It's just not good for you. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your mind, your spirit, and it's not good for people around you. In removing the covering of addiction, what will we find? In addiction being controlled, it is addiction being controlled by something because you need it, or in addiction, is addiction a way of life, self-medication perhaps, self-soothing, a moral weakness, a mental illness, a disease, an allergy, a spiritual sickness that we might identify as sin, or genetic environmental drug-induced disorder. You take your pick. What is it? The Bible tells it like it is. Someone asked if we could find illustrations of addiction in the Bible. The answer, of course, is yes, there's innumerable examples of addiction written in the Bible. One reason we can rely on the Bible is it reveals things, not only just the good things like many religions might reveal in their written material, but the Bible reveals the good, the bad, and the ugly. Not just one side, but all sides of human character and the involvement of human character in their faith, or lack of faith for that matter. A harvest celebration occurred when Noah was having his indulgence. So, of course, the first mention of alcohol use in the Bible that I could find was the story of Noah, and it goes back pretty far. However, Noah was a man of God, and we know he was a man of God because it took that dedication to do all that he did for those many years of building the ark. A diligent server, a diligent, faithful person of God, doing what he was told to do out of faith. Noah got drunk. Well, he got drunk at a certain time, yet there's no history of addictive problems with Noah earlier than when he had his period of intoxication. Within an agricultural growing season, after the waters covering the earth subsided, after the flood, Noah indulged himself in intoxication after harvesting his crop of grapes from the new, rich soil. Imagine how rich that soil was after the flood. And it settled and started to dry, and all of those nutrients and everything that are now in the soil, how wonderful all the crops must have been at that time. However, in Noah's history, no typical addiction character traits indicate that he had an alcohol problem or an addictive problem. But there is one story in the Bible that stands out when I think of addiction, alcohol problems. Of course, mostly it was alcohol problems or behavioral addictions as well. But what stood out first in my mind was the story of Nabal. That immediately comes to mind that because Nabal's offense was so severe that it triggered David before David became king. It triggered him into an evil, murderous plan. Because David always consulted with God before taking action. And here's one time where we can visibly see he did not consult with God. He impulsively got triggered. He impulsively wanted to seek vengeance or retaliation against Nabal. Nabal is a different example from Noah as someone who became intoxicated in the Bible. In 1 Samuel 25, if you want to look that up and read it for yourself, we read the story of how Nabal's alcoholism became his downfall. He was a selfish, mean, and greedy man. The story of Nabal describes a man of opposite character of Noah. We can summarize Nabal's character traits as among the lowest personalities. Not even his wife, Abigail, had a good word to say about Nabal, calling him a wicked man. His name means fool, and folly goes with him, she said. Yikes. He must have had a terrible example that he was setting. Nabal was sometimes considered to be the spawn of the devil or the spawn of Satan. Nabal's servants named him among one of sons of Belial, meaning sons of Satan and sons of worthlessness. The name Belial is a derivative of the demon Belial, which is minus the A in Belial, and that demon Belial is believed to be one of the original fallen angels. His character, Nabal's character of addiction, was evident in all these comments made in the Bible about him. Nabal's unflattering character is that of a harsh man, a man who is unpleasantly rough and cruel to everyone. He's known to be egocentrically selfish, with no regard for others, including his wife and family. Nabal spoke with arrogance to David's men and everyone else. That arrogance to David's men got back to David, and that's what stirred the trouble. Rageful, Nabal was prone to cause others to sin, seeking revenge against him. Typically, an addict triggers others, don't they? It's not the person inside so much as what the drug, what the addictive behavior does as a result of damaging the personality. The personality takes a hit. Others consider him to be good for nothing. Well, yeah, I guess that was true. He displayed a lack of self-control when he got drunk, which everyone does if they get intoxicated. And his personality is observed by many in addiction. That is, when you see addiction in people, you see these same characteristics, many of the same characteristics. Now, of course, not everybody's the same. There's always differences. But for the most part, that change occurs within, and impatience grows, and withdrawal and need for stimulation or satisfaction or whatever that need may be, as seen in Abigail's fear of telling Nabal during his drunkenness about what she did to halt David's murderous intentions. Nabal was prone to unsafe behavior, so addicts are prone to doing things that we wouldn't typically do because we think through. Well, what's the consequence if I do this? Well, I don't think I want to do this. So we think through it. We're in the upper part of our brains. Remember, addiction is in the basement of the brain, that fear and apprehension center of the brain. And when there's addiction, then you're residing down there and you're not problem solving very well. The frontal lobe goes to sleep, you might say, because all that mental energy, the metabolic flow, is increasing into the basement, decreasing in the frontal lobe and upper areas of the brain where your good thinking, rationalizations, logic, problem solving is located. Well, so how do you talk to an addict? When Abigail got home, she found Nabal presiding over a huge banquet. He was in high spirits and very, very drunk. So she didn't tell him anything of what she'd done until the morning. Good advice. Wait till afterwards. Wait till they're no longer intoxicated. Wait till they've settled down. No guarantees, but at least you're somewhat safer in saying what might upset them or what might trigger something in them to want to get drunk again or to want to seek their alcohol or behavior, so they can blame you. They can say, it's your fault I'm doing this because you said this or you did that. Whew. So she was afraid. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard wives expressing fears of communicating with their husbands acting out in their addiction, substance or behavioral addictions. And it's not only wives, but for the most part, it is the wives. Is addiction considered a curse? People ask. When we look at the descriptions of biblical curses, we see an expected result, either repentance and the curse lifts, or being cursed includes loss of everything significant and a lowering to the most menial of positions. Does that sound familiar with addiction? How many people have suffered through their addictions and suffered losses, one loss after another, because the addiction takes the priority. The addiction is number one on your call list. The addiction is the most important need that needs satisfying over everything else, no matter what. And that causes everything else, no matter what, to deteriorate. It's a cascading effect. And what's the result? Well, the damaged brain is evidenced. Does that sound like the result of most addictions? In Deuteronomy 27, we can see some examples of behaviors that could lead to being perceived as curses. Severe addictive behavior displays many of these maladaptive or abnormal behaviors. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, is it a duck? I don't know. You ask that of yourself, and if you're observing that in someone else or you're observing it in yourself, take a good look. Look in the mirror. What are you seeing? Severe addictive behavior displays many of these maladaptive behaviors or abnormal behaviors. One of them is idolatry. Now, idolatry can be extreme adulation to person, place, or thing. Incest is another one. No sexual boundaries there. Misleading the blind. Misleading those who are naive, in other words. Ambush. Secrets revealed for power and control. Unexpected events occurring. Finding out something at the last minute when it's too late to do anything about it. Another one is disrespect for authority and subversion of justice. Those are all biblical examples of curses. The consequences? Well, most graphic scriptural depiction of a curse is given in Deuteronomy chapter 28 when it describes the consequences that often occur upon the cursed. Incurable diseases, slow starvation, abuse by enemies, exile, being kicked out of the house, being ejected from the job, panic, confusion, madness, damages the brain. Wow, those are all consequences of curses. And do you see that in addictions? Sure do. I see a lot of that. And I'm sure you do also. But God is on our side. The one thing is for sure, no matter what terrible condition we may find ourselves in, God will never give up on us. He'll never give up on you, your friend, your family, or whoever else, no matter how far they may seem, and no matter how much they reject God. Perhaps they're vehement in their speaking of evolution and science and all of that stuff. Well, God doesn't give up on them. He still lets His light shine on them in hopes that there'll be a choice, a change, because He allows our free will to make those choices and changes. God doesn't want us to have an obsession and a compulsion with anyone or anything. The Bible says, "For there is no temptation to discontinue God's treatment that has come upon you, except for the fear and selfishness that infects all mankind. God is reliable and trustworthy. He'll not allow a temptation beyond your ability to resist. But when you're tempted, He'll always provide resources." So He's never giving up. He'll always provide resources, options, opportunities, supports, and alternative ways out, helping you find those other ways of getting out of your addiction. It may be through others, it may be through information, it may be through education, it may be through illness, because sometimes that illness causes us to hit a bottom to say, I've had enough of this, and then we want to change. So alternate ways out so that you can stand your ground and overcome the temptation, thereby growing stronger with each victory. So a little bit about what does the Bible say about addiction? I hope you pay attention and realize that, as we said in the introduction, all sorts of things can be addictive. Let's keep all things in moderation. There's good things and things that we do, but if we do it too much, if we go too far with it, have we crossed that fine line from healthy, normal, to unhealthy and abnormal? May your troubles be more minor, your blessings more, and happiness come through your door. God bless. We'll see you next time.